for energy.
I absolutely agree with you, and I think not only the full moon, but Mercury is in retrograde, which, makes communications appear to go backwards and mechanical things tend to go haywire. So rather interesting, to say the least.
So does that mean that we're going to be tongue-tied tonight?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been tongue-tied all day, so forgive me up front.
Yeah, well, okay, we'll forgive you up front. And always blame it on the retrograde. If all else fails, we can always blame it on that.
Absolutely.
Angela, can you give our listeners our website and the 800 number if we have any call-in listeners today?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
For those of you that would like to visit our website, that is www.portaltalkradio.com, or you can listen to our show on paranormalradionetwork.com. Also, you may tune in to AOL Radio, MSN Radio, Satellite Radio UK, BBS, and Live 365, to name a few. For those of you that wish to comment or to ask questions, our toll-free number is 877-786-0562. I also want to remind you that we do have a live interactive room on paltalk.com. You may go to paltalk.com, check social issues and politics, and we will be there waiting for you.
Great. Thank you, Angela. You know what? You do that a lot better than I do on that. Let's see, what else is new this week? We're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff today, actually. We've got a really great guest coming on tonight, James Hatcher. And actually, you and I didn't know that we both know him.
I know that. Fascinating gentleman, I have to say.
I think so, too. And a great guy, absolutely great guy on it. One quick thing about, I want to mention something about synchronicity real quick, and how things happen to us for a reason. We all think it's for a reason, or sometimes it just happens just because. But, I love the fact that here it is that I've been trying to research the area which I live in, and really haven't been that successful in finding a lot of the older documentations of the history behind it. We do have a museum, although they've been moving from place to place, so it's kind of hard to get into the museum and check out some of the archives that they have there. So I'm sitting here yesterday and I'm reading through a little paper that we get in the mail, and it's like a penny saver is what they call it, and has little advertisements in it, and it has advertisements for part-time sales eBay. So I call this ad, and this man answers, and he's saying that he does sell on part-time on eBay. He just needs somebody to help him list some of his items he has. And so I ask him, well, what do you have? And he says, I have negatives from the city of Long Beach back all the way to before the 1800s. I have the whole history of Long Beach. And I just stopped dead silence, and he goes, are you there? And I went like, I'm here. I have been searching for these forever. And so here it is. The fact is that, is it a coincidence that I sit down and I open up this little magazine paper here that on it, is it a coincidence that the fact is this man puts it out in the paper? Is it a coincidence that the fact is this man is holding all of the history that I've been looking for?
Absolute synchronicity. And isn't that wonderful news? I know that you and I spoke last week, and you were talking about, I just need the history.
That's it. I just was looking for the history of this. It would answer a lot of my questions on, and be able to prove some of my documentations that I've been doing. Instead of taking me the long way around the block, which it was doing, this way at least I can, I know that I'm correct, in my studies of this area. And so I'll tell you, it just amazed me. When he said that, I couldn't believe it, that here it is again, that, that we're putting the energy out into the universe and saying, hey, we need something, I need something, can you help me get it? Can you help me find it? And is it coming back that way? It amazes me when stuff like this happens. It just really is amazing.
Well, it's definitely the law of attraction in effect.
Attraction and that, boy. So I have a meeting with him on Monday, and I'm really excited to, I really don't want to have anything to do with eBay. I just want to go over and check out his stuff. Oh, let's see what's next for us today. I hope all you guys out there are having a good weekend, and happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to you too, Angela. We have our Independence Day coming up.
Yes, and I'm so excited. That's one of my favorite holidays, and so to all the men and women out there that are serving the country, happy 4th of July, and a big thank you from all of us. And, you know, those families out there, too, that are supporting or waiting on their men and women, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers to return home. You know, big support and a happy 4th of July to you as well. We understand how very much you are sacrificing for us all at this time.
I know, Angela, and you know, and we don't understand the fact is that, you know, okay, well, we've done what we can do there. Let's just bring them all back home. You know, somebody send them a jet, bring them home, let them be back in the United States where they need to be. But it doesn't look like it's going to be that soon, that to happen. So, I mean, I send them out a lot of prayers and blessings, and be safe and sound. And all you guys out there who are going to be drinking and doing fireworks, please be safe. Nobody blow off their fingers. We want nobody to go and get hurt, you know, for this 4th of July week on it. So, okay, so let's see what's next on our schedule here today. We've got, gosh, you know what? We've got some stuff. We've got some EVPs to play today.
Yes, EVPs. I know that you have some EVPs from your own home.
I've got one of them, and then I have 3 other ones that I got the permission from Peter James when he was working with that TV show called Sightings, and then also I have one of his that when he was working on the Queen Mary with a little ghost girl named Jackie, just an absolute amazing little spirit girl on it. You know, I have to say though, Angela, EVPs are not for everybody, and I have to say they're not one of my favorite things to record. I do get a little creepy. I actually catch something on the recorder. It does give me a little creepiness. You're thinking to myself, oh God, you know. I mean, the amazingness of it all is that we can record them, you know, and that to me is just absolutely amazing. But then, you know, I mean, the fact is that, you know, not all the time can I see what I'm recording, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, you think you don't see nothing in front of you, and all of a sudden you have your recorder on, and next thing you know, you listen to it, and there's somebody there that's talking that you didn't know that was there.
Well, you know, speaking of recording, I know that a lot of new paranormal investigators out there are just utilizing maybe a digital camera or a small tape recorder, but, you know, since we're having James Hatcher on today, who is a professional paranormal investigator, I thought, you know, Angela, go do a little bit of research on what type of equipment professionals use out there. So in my findings, of course, I found a lot of the old analog equipment out there, you know, that would pick up on the electromagnetic field or detect the temperature. But I have to say I'm in love with the digital equipment because it seems now that they're combining magnetic and electrical readings all in one package. And they also have infrared technology, which, you know, detects motion and temperature changes. They even have equipment that will detect positive or negative ions out there. So now with you doing all of your paranormal investigations Tuesday, have you utilized any of this type of equipment?
Oh, you know what? I don't own the equipment, that much of that. But I've used others, and I'll tell you, it's like, you know, I'm tapping on it going, how does this thing work? This thing is going bleep, 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 bleep all over the place. Is it working right, you know? Come on, you guys. I would just rather use my own senses than I would all this equipment. But the fact is that they're getting to the point of using this equipment because they're being able to document it better. At least it's some kind of scientific tools. They're able to document it, know that the fact is that there is another tool involved instead of just psychics, which I've actually found, Angela, more and more actually teams are getting away from having psychics on their teams and going more towards the tools. You know, I like to use my Bob Basic stuff is what I call it. I use, once in a while, I'll put some white noise on. You know, and that is really interesting. If any of you guys have ever worked with a white noise box, I'll tell you, you don't have to go looking for your ghosts. Your ghosts come looking for you. They hear that sound for some reason, and they are drawn to it. And it just sounds like it's like that waterfall sound. That, I mean, it's kind of, you know, obnoxious to your ears, but I don't know what it is, Angela. They sure do like that noise, and they will come looking for it. You know, I use my feathers. For some reason, you know, that I have found my ghost spirits, they love feathers. And I just take a couple feathers, hang it on a piece of thread, hang it from either a drawer. You got to make sure, though, you know, you don't have a lot of drafts coming by it and stuff. And I will tell you, ghost gets a hold of that, and it spins and spins and spins. And you can actually see them lifting it up and playing with it. For the kids, I'll put a little beach ball out there for it. believe it or not, they love to push that beach ball around. But then the other equipment's good too. You like the EMFs, you like to get the readings from them. You get your thermometer readings from that. I like to use a compass.
Yes.
The compass is always fun, and I use the dowsing rods once in a while here. So I'm not yet up to par with all that fancy electronic stuff. It's really expensive actually on it. It can run up a lot of money for it. So maybe one day I will do it. But so far I've been pretty successful with just the basic tools that I've used from it.
Well, now you mentioned that you use a compass. There are still people out there that are using an old ancient method where they run a needle across silk. They run, to generate that magnetic field,
okay.
And then they place that needle in a bowl of water, and it becomes a compass.
Oh, cool! That's
Isn't
right.
that something?
Isn't that something? And so inexpensive out there. I mean, I know this one team, this one gal. I'll tell you, she must have spent $20,000 on her equipment. And I thought, my gosh, But then again, these are for serious investigations. They really are taking this out, to, what they need to do with it. They're not cutting corners on it. So they really want to get that documentation, which is great. But my thing is, if you're going to do all the work, write about it. Put it out there for all of us to compare with it. Don't keep this information to yourself. It's not meant to keep to yourself. It is meant to share with the public. That is educating them. It is educating your brothers and sister paranormal investigators. It is helping us all by you sitting on the information. And mind you, I understand that you have to keep the privacy of your client. That's first and foremost, and I understand that it should be. But otherwise than that, if you are doing something and you have new findings on something, write about it and put it on the net for us to see it. So that way we can also learn from it also.
Well, one of these days soon, Tuesday, I'm going to give the radio address, the physical address, so that all of the paranormal investigators out there that are ditching their old analog equipment can then donate it to Angela and Tuesday.
There we go. There we go. That's right. We're up for donations. There we go. Yeah, that would be great. You know what? I mean, this is the thing. With this type of field that that we're in, whether I'm going to call it a profession, use your imagination with some things also too. Mind you, like in life, like in death. Quote from Peter James. The fact is that in some of the things that we would like, who knows? The fact is, the spirit would like them death also. Their curiosity is still there, and maybe sometimes it's not going to take that magical, big, electronic, expensive tool to get documentation from it. They like pencils also. I have to tell you, I've seen quite a few of my pencils in my room, in my bedroom at night, levitate. For some reason, they left the pencils. And, I've got some good video of it. It's just sometimes it's just the simplest tools to use on it. And I want to make a real quick comment, too, on some things. And I noticed that if you've got quite a few people on your team, and sometimes they have 9, 12, up to 12, 15 people on their team, the more that you bring into a place, you cause havoc. And the fact is that you're not going to get as much validation as you want to, because the fact is ghosts scatter. So you want to come in quietly, maybe with not as many people. I noticed with James, him and his wife goes in and does an investigation. It's just, I believe it's just them two, isn't it, Angela?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And I bet that they get a lot of great documentation from it because they're quiet when they come in. They don't bring a lot of people in around them, and the fact is, ghosts just kind of blend in with them on it. And I think that's important too. So I'm sure he's going to bring up some points. Let's get on. Let's move forward with the EVPs we have, so we can fit everything in today.
Okay, sounds great.
And now the first one. Now we're going to make sure that my our sound manager guy's there. Are you with us there? Can I see it? Yeah, I see him there. Okay, give us about 30 seconds. We'll play the first one. Okay, let me give listeners a warning. Okay, sometimes it's not for the benefit of a person who has a lot of activity in their house to play an EVP in full volume. Okay, you can put your headphones on would be better, but I will tell you that sometimes it's not beneficial for you to have an EVP played out loud. It can draw in more activity. So if that's not going to bother you, then no big deal. But otherwise than that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of heads up, because you might want to put on your headphones, okay? First EVP that we have is actually with Peter James, and he was working on the Queen Mary, and with a little girl named Jackie, and so she speaks to Peter more towards the end of the EVP. Turn up your volume so you can hear it. Okay, if we can play that first one on it, see if I got my sound guy there. Don't give me no dead air. Give me no dead air.
Listen. Hear that noise? Hello? I want to go back, then I want to go back. Yes! I want to look. I'm looking. Let me help you. Okay, talk to me again. You don't have to stay here. Yes, you can do that too if you want to. Is that Mommy?
Chills were running down my back.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know, I have to tell you, I've seen this little girl in spirit. I have not heard her yet talk out loud, but I have seen her, and she's the sweetest looking thing, I'll tell you. But she has this relationship with Peter. For some reason, she just chitter-chatters to him like you wouldn't believe. And, you know, he constantly calls for her, and she says, I'm over here, Peter. She knows his name. I'm over here, Peter. You know, and he's got so many recordings of her on it. And I always ask Peter, you know, one day, Peter, do you think that she'll move on? I mean, is there a place for her to move on? You know, we hope there's a place for her to move on. I just would hate to see the fact is that we get stuck in one place, and that's it for us. Okay, let's go on to number 2. Now, the second one is Peter with the show Sightings. Now, this little girl says, where is my mommy? Let's see if you guys can hear the same thing on it. And we'll play that one. You ready, sound man?
Is that Mommy? No. Not right there.
Emotionally keep them. Ask for their mother.
Oh, no, Angela. You know, and the fact is that sometimes, though, like, for instance, when I was listening to that, you know, I could hear her over and over again. And the fact is, it could be just an imprint. It could be the fact is that's the last thing she said before she died, and she's replaying it over and over again. So, you know, I'm not sure whether or not, I can't say because I wasn't there, but the fact is whether that is actual spirit or it's just an imprint of the voice recording over and over again, and the last memory of you know, what was left of before, you know, this little girl died.
Very good point. Very good point. I wonder if we'll ever know, though.
Well, you know, I'll ask Peter about that and see what he says about it. What, you know, more information regarding on this, you know, specific case on it, and that, you know, if they got any more conversation out of this little girl besides "Where is my mommy?" on it. See what he has to say. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We've got one more of Peter's, and then we have one of my own personal one. And this one is Peter James again, and it's a woman in spirit that says, "Hope we can talk." And see if you guys can hear this. Go ahead, down.
Is that Mommy? No.
Her voice is pretty clear on that.
You know, I wonder what type of equipment is being utilized with professional investigators out there picking up EVPs. Do you think that a typical tape recorder can pick that up?
Oh, absolutely. You know, they even hear them in baby monitors. You know, so it's it seems to be that the equipment these days are very sensitive to any sound. You know, even with my little digital camera that's got a recorder on it, can hear something 2 blocks over. I mean, it's that sensitive to hear anything on it. So, you know, I mean, sometimes we're not really looking for stuff, and we don't understand that EVPs don't have to always be in voice. They do tapping and knocking and screeching, and they make all kinds of sounds for communication. So, you know, don't dismiss it. The fact is, if you are doing recordings, that you're not actually hearing a voice, if you're hearing some other kind of sounds in it, that it could be their way of them communicating, Angela.
Well, you know, I'm looking at our live interactive room here, and James Hatcher is saying that voice analyzation computer programs are now being utilized a lot these days. So amazing. Of course, I'm going to be making out my birthday and Christmas list for all those listeners that want to donate. Okay, so Tuesday you have one in your home, is that correct?
The very last one we're going to play actually was taken in my home. It was out in my garage. I was aware of a little girl in spirit that was out in my garage. She would go out, and I'd see her in the backyard actually playing with a little ball, and then one night I happened to be in the garage, and I was actually doing some recordings, and I had seen her, and so I figured because the fact is that she had shown herself to me, maybe that she was, interested in doing a little bit of communicating with me, and so I had asked her a question. I asked her if she was afraid of the other spirits, and what she says to me, and you can hear it on the tape too, is she says to me, "No, I'm not afraid of the other spirits, but they're not friends with the children anyways." And then she giggles, and so you'll hear what she says. Go ahead, Soundman, can you play that?
We know you. We know you.
I mean, it's kind of hard to actually, isn't that cool, Bowles? Yeah, that's cool. I like it too. But the fact what interests me a lot on that, Angela, is that they sound like they're coming through a tunnel. You really can hear, especially with her, you can hear her like she's in a tunnel talking to me.
And I wonder why that is. Do you think it has to do with time and space and dimensions?
Well, in my opinion, I think the fact is that not so much that they're always really on the Earth's plane, that maybe the fact is that they are on the other dimension, and that's what we're hearing or seeing them through. We're seeing into where they're at, not so much that they're here where we're at. And it could be the case that some of them are. But I think in her case, the fact is that tunnel really is significant in regarding the fact is I'm crossing over. That there's been so many accounts of people with out-of-body experiences, with near-death experiences, that they all speak about this tunnel that they go through. And I'm just wondering, the fact is that that's what it sounds like with the portal also, too, that it's a tunnel.
Well, you make a very valid point there. So tell me now, Tuesday, you and I have spoken quite a bit about the activity in your house. And from what you've told me, I believe that you have some sort of ley lines in your home, on your property. And, when I speak of ley lines, I'm not speaking historically, how the ancients used to lay lines to navigate or to show a path that would lead to, let's say, Stonehenge or some type of special place. But when I'm speaking of ley lines, And, if we speak of ley lines here on the show, we're quite literally talking about the physics part of things. And that would be that ley lines generate an electromagnetic field or electric energy or an electrical source. And so with some of the stories that you've shared with me, I do believe that you have a lot of magnetic fields going on in your home and on your property. You had mentioned the other day to me about a train station in your closet. Now, for those of you that are listening, I have to tell you, Tuesday Miles is a sane individual. When she said, "Listen, Angela, I have a train station in the closet. Let me tell you the story," I thought, okay. But it's absolutely fascinating. Fascinating. Tuesday, will you share that story with us?
This is the thing about really giving me that credibility, whether I'm insane or I'm not. I mean, thanks for that plug on that. But I have to tell you, at the time that this happened, I have to say, I doubted my own insanity at first when this was going on because I couldn't believe it. And you're right. The area in which I live in, the houses and everything are all built on top of streams. And whether the streams have something to do with it, the fact is that. But, it has been well known that the fact is this area is fully energized. And I was home by myself. It was smack in the middle of the day. I was standing in my living room, and behind me in my hallway, there's a closet there. And I heard some knocking coming from it. And I looked around to see if maybe it was a cat. I thought, no, my dog won't fit in there, and I know nobody else is home. And I didn't go look right away. Actually, I waited a couple minutes, and I heard it again. I thought, okay, well, again, like I said, it's okay when you have, somebody else at home with you and you hear knocking coming from inside a closet, So I did go over and I opened it up. Well, when I opened it up, and I actually stood back a little bit just to look in there to see if there was a cat or somebody in there. And I looked up, and here comes floating out of the closet this woman. And she was in a full apparition state, which means the apparition where they can illuminate themselves to where you actually can see the full features of them, minus the feet. Usually you don't get the feet in the picture, but they really do show themselves full-bodied. And she just floated right by me, and she was in that period where I would say in the late 1800s, 1900s, around there, she had some luggage in her hand. Had a very nice bonnet on her. She had very, very well dressed. And she just acted like she really didn't pay much attention to me, just walked past me. And I turned around, and I seen another lady, and then I seen another man, and I seen another man, and they just kept floating, coming out of this closet, coming right by me. And I'm standing there with my mouth wide open, and disbelief. The fact is I couldn't believe that they were even coming through. And watching them with their luggage and how nicely they were dressed. And I would say it was probably about the 10th one, and finally to the 11th one, I noticed that their clothes started to change, where they no longer were wearing these fancy outfits, that they were wearing more plainer clothes. Their luggage were a little bit more worn in on it. And again, there would be a couple children came through with a lady on it. Again, a man looked like he was like on the railroad. He was kind of grungy looking. And I noticed that when we got up to be where I was counting them, actually, 23, 24, counting. When I got to around the mid-20s, they really changed. The appearance of their clothes changed to where they were, you could just tell they were extremely poor. And still again they had, and their suitcase got smaller and smaller, where they had these real old-fashioned suitcases that were no bigger than a box of donuts, and they probably had one change of underwear in there, and that was about it, And so I got up to the count of 20, it was 28. And the last lady came off, and she was I would say, probably one of the poorest persons that was on the train, because it went from high class to middle class to the poor that was coming off this train. And if you think back in those days, that's how you were allowed to exit, was by your stature. If you were rich, you got off first, and so on and so forth. And so she stops, and she looks at me. It was the only first one that really stopped and looked at me. And she has this English kind of voice to her, and she says to me, she calls me Mum, and she says, "Mum, you had better step back away from the train. You're going to get run over."
My goodness, what did you do?
I just looked at her, and I was like, "Huh? What did you say? Huh?" And she repeated it to me again, like she understood that I didn't understand her, and she said it again. "Step back from the train. You're going to get run over." And I thought, train, and that's why I was, and they were all standing in my living room, and I thought, train, that's why they have the luggage. oh, no. And I turned around and I said, wait a minute here. You're at the wrong stop. This is not your stop. You're in America. This is the year, I think the year was 2005 at the first time that it happened. And I said, you're completely at the wrong stop. You need to go back on the train and go back to wherever your destination is. This is not here. And the lady says to me, the only thing she said was okay. And again, but what was really interesting, it wasn't the same order that they went back on. It was from the rich to the middle class to the poor who boarded back on it and went right back through the closet they went. I walked over there and closed the closet and sat down and didn't say a word for a couple hours because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that actually happened. So it's actually happened 3 times. The third time we got it in film, and I had it witnessed from another person in my home. So at least I did get another eyewitness on it. And what we ended up doing is, just as an experiment basis, is we took some copper wire, some very, very thick gauge copper wire. And what we did is we actually put in the ground like a copper tube, and then put the wire in there. And that's almost like grounding the energy there. And hopefully that we were trying to redirect the ley line energy, if that's what that indeed it was. And I've never seen it since.
Well, Tuesday, let me ask you about that experience, other than I am sure you were completely flabbergasted with your first experience on it, especially with all of those spirits in your living room.
Oh, yeah.
But when you told the lady spirit that acknowledged you or called you Mom, do you feel that she understood you when you said you're in the wrong time, like this is 2005, or do you believe that maybe she was hearing something different, or maybe perhaps thought, well, she completely didn't understand me, so let's just all get back on the train?
Well, the characteristics from her face, the face features that she gave me, is that in itself left such an imprint in my mind, because, the other ones didn't pay any attention to me at all. She was the only one that paid attention to me. It was almost like I was standing there, and whether I was fitting in with them, there was no difference. I was surprised that, we're in the century here, we're in the modern century here, and I'm sure there's got to be a big difference. I have a bathroom, running water, compared to where they came from. But I do believe that when she looked at me and said, okay, that she did understand what I was saying to her.
Well, now, she called you Mom, though. Do you think that
Mom.
she heard what her mom's response would have been?
That's interesting that you say that, and it could be possible on that. The only thing I can recall on this, Angela, is just the look on her face, and being a clairvoyant, gives us extra benefits of seeing spirit. It really does. But, I truly believe the fact is that when my husband was here and seen this, and, again, they didn't acknowledge him at all, but he could not believe the face features on these apparitions. It was just so clear. I could tell you even what their buttons looked like on their clothes. It was the clearest I have ever seen in my 15 years of doing this, ever have seen such a clear picture of a spirit. Even with color. Usually you don't get the color. Very rarely do we get color. These had color. So
that goes back to my ley line, research. I research ley lines, historically, culturally, and also New Age meanings to ley lines. And one thing that I came across was where there are ley lines, so are paranormal activity at a higher level, and also supernatural events have taken place. And so I believe, Tuesday, just from the little research that I know about ley lines, and we'll have to bring an expert on one of these days soon to explain it to all of us, but do you feel like that ley line could possibly be such a large force, a line force, let's say, an energy force, that would have given all of those spirits the incredible amount of energy to be able to see them so clearly?
Well, there had to have been something. I'm not an expertise on the ley lines. I had to seek outside help to even understand a little bit of it, and I'm still not up to par on ley lines. It really hasn't been a big interest with me, although I I do feel that I could learn a lot more about it. I've actually found a guy named David Cohen who has written a couple books, one being Ley Lines in the Earth Energies and Safest Houses, and so I will contact him and see if we can bring him on board as a guest. He seemed to be, when I did do some research, that he had just some awesome information out there about it. And I have to say, before I can comment really any more about it, I really don't know that much, in my own opinions, to even give information out. Angela, I mean, it would be just me guessing or just, what my own opinion is on it, and I really don't have a strong opinion on it. I think myself, the only thing I think is that it has to do with something with these streams of water. The fact is, water does energize spirit. We all do know that. That's been well documented, along with other resources. I don't think it's just water alone, but I think that with the electrical lines, the EMF, and with the moon energy, with earth energies, I mean, all of it put together, we have hit and made progress on this in this field of paranormal, but we haven't even begun to hit all of it. So,
well, we'll have to definitely ask James Hatcher about that.
Yes,
see if he can give us a little bit of information.
And he's coming up pretty soon.
Absolutely. Well, before we bring James on, can you tell our listeners about who is going to be coming on Sunday, July 15th?
Yeah, we're not going to have a show next week. We have, our station manager actually has a convention to do out in Roswell, and if you live out in that area, and you get a chance, go out and say hi to him. He's with the ICAR group, and they would appreciate any kind of heads up to their group on it. And actually, but on the following week on that, which I believe is the 15th, we're going to have Melinda Rodriguez. Now, Melinda Rodriguez is a Reiki healer. She's also a spirit drum master. And I'll tell you, I have actually been to her for some of her services. And I tell you, you think that you like massages, this woman touches you twice. Once on the head, once on the feet. And I'll tell you, it was the best non-massage I have ever had in my whole life. I cannot believe the amazing amount of healing that Reiki masters have, and I give them a lot of credit, because what they're doing is absolutely amazing, Angela.
Well, I know a lot of Reiki healers are out there are utilizing what they call prana energy, and we've seen a lot of that in, let's say, when we watch movies of Eastern culture, where they actually do touching and they heal a body. But I know that Reiki healers out there are doing phenomenal work, and there, of course, is phenomenal research on them as well. So that'll be interesting to hear Melinda Rodriguez talk about the energy by utilizing Reiki. And then also the spirit drum master. Now, what do you suppose a spirit drum master does?
Well, I know that the guides that she works with are all Native American, and I know that through the drumming, she's able to connect with these Indian spirits who actually have an amazing amount of energy that they work through. There's a lot of messages they get from doing the drumming, the energy balancing, energy healing that they do for the earth. But there's just so much that to mention, and I'll wait until Melinda comes, because she is the expert on this.
Well, good. I can't wait to hear Melinda talk about it, because for me as a psychic, I don't really get into the Reiki healing, and I've not tried spiritual drumming, although I hear it's absolutely phenomenal, especially for intuitives like you and I. But that'll be interesting, to say the least. Well, Tuesday, let me ask you about this last contest that we had. I know that you were telling me no one did have the correct answer. I personally could not get the answer. And so, do we have a new question this week?
We have a new question this week. Are you guys listening out there? Okay, come on now. Now, this is going to be, this is for a Starbucks thing. This is for a Starbucks gift card, guys, okay? So I want to see all those perk up that like to drink Starbucks, huh?
I'm a fan of Starbucks.
So, and you can also get this, actually, you can go to the website, and the question is actually posted on the website also, too. But there's new contest rules. We have to put contest rules there. It's the law. So you guys have up until the next show, which actually we're going to give you a little bit extra time because we're doing a rebroadcast next week. Okay, but I want to read you the question. If you didn't catch the question or didn't have a chance to write it down, you can catch it on the website. And here it is. Now, question. This is it. Okay, what is the name of a ghost-making machine used for popular entertainment from the late 18th century through the 19th century? The device was developed by a Belgian obstetrician in the late 1790s. The machine projected convincing figures before an audience. What is the name of the machine and who invented it?
Tuesday. That's an amazing question there, and I have to tell you, I would have not a clue. So for all of you paranormal investigators and those of you that are dealing with the paranormal and the unusual, or even magicians for that matter, do your history or do your homework, and let's see what kind of interesting answers that we get. Now, I see that there's our guest in the room speaking about that answer. So we'll just see about that, James Hatcher, if that's the correct answer.
Well, let me repeat it one more time because I'm getting a lot of people in the virtual auditorium saying, you talk too fast. And you guys can get it on the website, too, and that's at www.portaltalkradio.com. You can find it there, on the intro page, actually. But I'll repeat it one quick time. We've got a few extra minutes. Okay, got it, you guys? Got your pens and pencils ready again? Okay, good. What is the name of a ghost-making machine used for popular entertainment from the late 18th century through the 19th century? The device was developed by a Belgian obstetrician in the late 1790s. The machine projected convincing figures before an audience. What is the name of the machine and who invented it?
Well, now, again, a great question. Now, the rules are, though, that you have to email that to portaltalkradio@aol.com. So you have up until the next live broadcast, which will be on Sunday, July 15th. Now, Tuesday, do you know what they still have that machine? I mean, are people utilizing that, let's say, for, like, event coordinators?
No, Angela. Actually, it actually probably the fact is that with the I'm not going to. Don't try to trick me now to give them answers. Did you see that, you guys? She's trying to be on your side. She's trying to trick me. Okay, no, it's actually was through the 19th century is that they used it, and it did not say that it was used anymore. And I think what it was for entertainment basis only. That the man who did invent it was using it just for that. But there was such a thing, and it does have. If those of you who find the answer, let me tell you, it has got the most weirdest name for it. But I'm not going to give you any more than that. Unbelievable name that I could not believe that it did have this name on it. It does have a name. They did name this machine.
Well, absolutely amazing. I wonder if it can be replicated. I'm going to check into that, to tell you the truth. And of course, I know I can't win the Starbucks card because I am a big, huge fan, and so I know I cannot win it as a host. Well, Tuesday, tell us a little bit about our guest coming up, James Hatcher.
Well, I would love to. Angela is going to be doing the interview with our guest, James Hatcher, and I'm not going to be doing the interview. We still are having technical difficulties with our phones, but a good note on that is I was told tonight that we still have about 2 weeks before we can get that completely fixed. But it is being fixed, and that way Angela and I could both be on at the same time drilling our guests. So I am so sorry not to be able to join you and James Hatcher. And James is a awesome paranormal investigator. He's an author. He's a husband. He's a father. He's an absolutely amazing guy, and he's got lots to share. I love the fact that not only does he do investigations, but he sticks with the people who he investigates. That was really what really drew my eye to when I was reading more information about James. The fact is that they don't just go in, they don't just get their information and then bail on the people who are having the problem. They stick with them. They counsel them. They go to do as much work as they can to either solve the problem or hopefully to teach them how to live with them. But that is unique, and that's what I loved about reading up on James. Is that in himself, I can see the compassion that him and his wife bring into investigating. And not only that, he's got a great book that's out, and I can't say enough of nice things about James Hatcher. I've actually met him quite a few years ago, actually, and haven't gotten a chance to talk with him in quite a while. And so, lo and behold, when you suggested him as a guest, and here I'm reading all this other stuff, and I happened to click on his contact information, and an email came up, and Greg Ghost's name went on there, and I went, "Oh my God, I know him! I got his number in my phone book."
Well, I have to tell you that I stumbled across James Hatcher several years ago when my own needs surfaced. And so, if we do have the time, I'll share a little story with you. It's absolutely fascinating. And, of course, James Hatcher is the one that made me feel very, very comfortable with what was occurring in my home. But, one of the things I want to talk about before we get into the interview is that James Hatcher is a paranormal investigator professionally. He is the director of paranormal research and investigations for the Shiloh Spiritual Center in St. Augustine, Florida. And, James has shared with me a few of the more historically known haunted places in the South. And so I look forward to having James share some of those with us at the top of the hour.
Well, we've got less than a minute left on it until we do go to break. So I'm looking forward to listening to your interview with James. I'm very jealous that you do get to interview him. And if you watch The Room, I'll probably sneak a question in here or there. But pretty much the fact is Angela, you've got it covered. You're a great interviewer, and I just want to thank James for coming in and joining us tonight. And if I don't get a chance to speak with him, I wish him the best on everything that he does, and we promote him in every which way. So we've got just a couple seconds left before we're going to break on it. But one quick thing on this, Angela, and I hope that you were able to cover this is that he does list on his site that he does 3 different ways of investigation where he breaks it down to 3 different subjects. And I just think the fact is that I love it that they take the time to really get to know the client on it. So, and happy ghost hunting.
All right. Well, you all stay tuned, and we will be back at the top of the hour with James Hatcher, paranormal investigator for the Shiloh Spiritual Center.
It's the top of the hour in Portal Paranormal Talk Radio with your hosts Tuesday Miles and Angela Thomas will return in just a few moments. Go to www.portaltalkradio.homestead.com. Portal Paranormal Talk Radio, your show that allows you to talk about ghosts, ghost hunting, spirits, mediumship, and paranormal research. Everything paranormal on Portal Paranormal Talk Radio.
This is James Arthur Yanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio, inviting you to join me on a road to truth via the path of non-contradiction. Join us each week on Feet to the Fire, a show with the goals of examining a subject matter on its own merits and test how it stands up to the many possibilities found in reality, all without pre-drawn conclusions found in personal bias. No left or right wings here. No pounding the pulpit of ego-driven my way or the highway attitudes. But there are no free passes given either. Answers to questions are important, but equally important is the reasons and methods used to find the answer. But like a contradiction is the final judge here on Feet to the Fire. Sunday evenings, live. How do you listen? www.feettothefire.com. FeetToFire.com for more information.
What would you do if you knew all the things we know? Would you stand up for truth? Or would you turn away too?
Get your dose of truth with the Truth Hurts radio show with your host Charles Giuliani, Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. The Truth Hurts, ignorance kills.
What would you do if you...
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. Your chance to talk about ghosts, ghost hunting, spirits, miracles, mediumship, the strange, and paranormal research. With your hosts, Tuesday Miles and Angela Thomas. Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. Go to www.portaltalkradio.homestead.com. Now here's your hosts of Portal Paranormal Talk Radio, Tuesday Miles and Angela Thomas.
And hello, we are back. You're listening to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio, your door to the spirit world. And today's guest, we have James Hatcher. Hello, James Hatcher.
Hi, Angela. Good to be seeing you. Good
well,
to
nice to hear you. Nice to hear you. It's been a long time since you and I have spoken.
It certainly has. But I knew our paths would cross sooner or later again.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. You know, Tuesday and I were talking on our first hour about paranormal investigations, and I have to ask you, what exactly got you started in the investigation side of things?
Well, basically, I've always been curious about the paranormal. There were some things that happened to me when I was a child that I couldn't explain. I witnessed some paranormal events, and I witnessed some a little later in life as well. And I was very, very curious, and I needed answers. Everyone that I would ask at the particular time either didn't want to discuss it at that time because they weren't as open as we are now about it. And so I had very few answers, so I had to kind of seek them out myself. And once I started, it's like something that you get into, the more you research it and the more you learn, the more there is to learn. And so I've been doing it ever since. I started actually investigating about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. And I've researched and studied and worked with several different groups, worked with some very good people.
And so who are you working with now?
I'm working with the Shiloh Spiritual Center at the moment. I'm the head of their paranormal research and investigation department. They basically refer cases to me. And
well, James, now are you not a part of the International Ghost Hunters Society?
Yes, I am. I'm a member of the International Ghost Hunters Society, but as such, I don't get out and hunt ghosts anymore. I strictly am kind of semi-retired right now. I'm pretty particular about the cases that I take because I do this not to basically hunt ghosts. I do this basically to help people, people that are having a real problem with it, people that are having paranormal experiences that they don't understand and that they don't know how to deal with. I hunted ghosts for a lot of years, but there's a subtle difference between a ghost hunter and a paranormal investigator, and that is a ghost hunter is looking for evidence. Actually, in 20 years, I found enough evidence to convince me that ghosts and spirits exist. And basically, what I'm into the side of now is the side of helping people who have these experiences and don't understand them.
So now, when you say help those people who are having an experience who don't understand what is happening to them, do you counsel them, or are you going into their environment and getting rid of that activity? Exactly how do you assist someone with that going on?
When I'm referred a case, it's, like I said, through the spiritual center mostly. I do private cases as well, but not very often. What's happening is that someone has experienced, some paranormal activity of one sort or another, and first thing I'm going to do, of course, is do an investigation to see whether or not there is a basis for this.
So now, you had mentioned to me before you do a preliminary investigation first. Can you take us through the process?
Yeah, the process is, the first thing that I'm going to do with any preliminary investigation is some in-depth interviews with everybody concerned on the case. You have to basically know what's going on and the people's perception of what's going on before you can actually get in and make a determination as to whether there needs to be a physical or a spiritual investigation.
Well, have you ever found any type of resistance? Let's say that one person in the household had the experience and perhaps another family member did not. Do you find any kind of resistance, maybe based on someone's religious beliefs or, a non-believer?
Oh, absolutely. I've had cases where, say, the wife is experiencing some paranormal activity, and say the husband is dyed-in-the-wool skeptic, and he basically just thinks she's crazy, or other family members.
Oh, goodness. Now, so what do you do? I mean, what do you do when you're doing the investigation and you might have what I will call a hostile individual or somebody that is resistant? Do you just stick with the one that went through that experience, or do you ask others around them or ask someone in the neighborhood? I mean, what do you do from that point?
Absolutely. I don't just stick with the one who's having the experiences, because in order to make a judgment as to whether there is, in fact, a basis for any paranormal activity happening in a place, you have to know what's going on with everybody that's concerned. It's something that basically you have to get all the perceptions. In other words, if this person saw this and another person was with them at the same time and they saw nothing, I want to know that. I want to know what they were experiencing at the time, too.
Sure. So now, after you, I guess I should say, do interviews with one or two or three witnesses, then what is your next step?
Well, the next step would be to go over and correlate all the information that I have. In other words, I want to see the similarities and the differences in what people are saying about this experience that occurred. And what I'm going to do then is, if I can correlate that information, then what I'll do is a preliminary physical investigation, if it's warranted.
So now, how do you do a physical investigation?
Okay, what you do is you basically you look at the site. You look at the location, basically. You look at the location. If it's in a house, for instance, you want to check around the house. You want to check the outside of the house and the inside as well, looking at the structure, the layout. You also want to look at any hazards. You want to look at, because if you're going to go in there, you want to be safe, of course. That's the whole thing. If you're going to do a paranormal investigation, you want to do it safely, and there are as many physical hazards as there are other hazards or more. Especially if you're not familiar with the area and you don't basically, know the layout. This is one of the reasons for a preliminary physical investigation, is so to familiarize you with the area, familiarize you with your surroundings.
Okay, so now that you're there, you're doing a physical investigation.
Right.
So now what is your next step?
The next step is, first thing you're going to do is, if you have instrumentation, you're going to do some baseline readings. You're going to get a normal baseline for your electromagnetic fields, your temperatures, basically your hygrometer readings, moisture in the air, electrostatic discharge, things of that nature. You're going to record all these and make sure that they're staying at a steady level. In other words, you're going to correlate that with the surroundings. In other words, power wires, anything that may be having an effect on an electromagnetic or geomagnetic field. You want to make sure that those things are recorded as a baseline so that you can note the deviations to them if there is a paranormal event occurring, so that you can basically compare that with the baseline.
So now, you said the deviation between, you mentioned temperatures, for example. You're monitoring the temperatures and, going all throughout the environment.
Right.
So what exactly are you looking for in a temperature change? Are you looking for more heat or cool? I mean, exactly what does that mean?
Well, when you do baseline readings, you're basically establishing a norm temperature is what you're doing in a given area. In other words, if say people have an air conditioner running, there's usually going to be a pretty steady temperature, say of about 72 degrees or so. If there's no air conditioning running or whatever, you want to look for whatever the high temperature is, and any deviations or fluctuations after that, after you've established your baseline, is what you're going to be writing down. And you want to take these basically at a steady level, say every 15 minutes or 30 minutes or however often you deem necessary.
So let's just take, for example, the average temperature in a household is 72 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, let's say, a drop in temperature, I'll just say 40. I, honest to goodness, don't know how cold it does get when you have an extreme change. What is happening when the temperature is changing? What is occurring?
Basically, the theory is when temperatures drop, spike or drop suddenly, what you're having is an environmental reaction to a paranormal experience. In other words, if something's trying to manifest, it's basically drawing on the energy of the heat in the air, and it may cause a sort of a vacuum of heat where you'll get a temperature drop suddenly, and then if it's not fully manifesting or goes away or whatever, that temperature will return to a normal.
Oh, I see. So now how long do you what's your typical length of time when you're doing, let's say, a more scientific approach, when you're already there, you're getting your baseline set up? How long does that normally take you to do that?
Well, depending on the amount of equipment you're going to use, it normally takes me anywhere from maybe 45 minutes to an hour to establish baselines and get set up.
Okay, so now you've spent about an hour. Okay, we'll
Right.
just call it an hour that you're there. Then what do? I mean, I know then you start looking for the type of phenomenon that might be there, or what?
Yes, you do that. You're basically doing observation. You're basically doing observation of video cam input, sound input. You're recording the whole time, and basically you're looking for any anomaly that may occur. And what you want to do if you find an anomaly is the first thing you want to do is eliminate all physical causes that if it's a paranormal event and you perceive it as a paranormal event, you want to try to eliminate all the possible physical causes for that particular event.
Right. So let's say that you've eliminated all of the physical possibilities other than the true paranormal phenomenon in front of you. Let's just say, for example, you're in front of a spirit, you're witnessing a spiritual activity in the home. Then where do you go from there? I mean, do you just observe it, or how do you approach it, or what do you advise that individual to do about it?
Well, you have to ascertain what type of activity it is, because we have several types of paranormal phenomena that can affect people in the home. One of the types, the most common type, is what we call a haunting, usually a residual haunting. I don't know if I know you're familiar with the difference in a residual haunting and a spiritual haunting.
Yes, but if you'll share that with our listeners.
Okay. Well, a residual haunting is basically environmental energy, environmental psychokinetic energy that from time to time, when the environmental conditions repeat themselves in a close enough form, they will actually replay an event or a scene. And the biggest difference in a residual haunting and a spiritual haunting is the interaction with people, in other words.
So is that the difference between a ghost and a spirit, you mean?
Well, basically, there are several definitions that people like to use for ghosts and spirits. One of the definitions that I like to use as a quote-unquote ghost is a residual haunting. If it's a spiritual haunting, it's going to interact with you in one way or the other.
Interacting as in voice, or interaction as in moving things around, or just appearing and disappearing?
It could take several forms. Interacting, I'm talking about just like between you and I.
Communication then.
Communication, exactly. If it shows intelligence, if this entity or manifestation shows intelligence and interact with you personally, then you're dealing with a spirit.
Well, I have to ask you, James, I mean, has there ever been an investigation where you are one-to-one with that phenomenon and you say, okay, I need to leave?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have. I've described that particular instance in my book, Fear Not the Night. It was the first time I ran into a particular spirit of a Temaquan Indian.
Wow.
And this was not a happy guy, let me tell you.
So what happened?
Basically, what happened was it was manifesting as to where it would actually try to stop your breathing.
You mean it was trying to choke you?
Yeah, basically it would do that. And the first time I ran into that, I actually had to leave. I actually had to get back into the house and get away from where it was. Because what happens is a lot of times an angry spirit, I won't say an evil spirit because they're not necessarily evil. They are simply angry at times.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was I actually had to kind of back off and regroup and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not afraid of this entity or whatever is feeding on my fear of it and my surprise. And basically I turned around and went right back over there and said, okay, buddy, it's you and me.
A brave soul you are, too.
Yeah. Pardon?
I said, brave soul that you are.
Well, I just had to back off and kind of, make myself understand that, hey, you don't need to be afraid of this. You're in control, And
so now, let's go back to your investigations.
Mm-hmm.
And, here you have an entity or, some type of phenomenon in front of you. Where do you go from there exactly? I mean, do you say, okay, here you have some paranormal activity. I've proved that it is indeed the activity, and thank you very much and goodbye, or do you try to bring some sort of resolution to it?
I always try to bring some resolution whenever it's possible. What you have to realize is that a lot of the cases that are handled where it would appear that there is some sort of, paranormal experience going on is actually derived from negative energy of the people themselves.
Ah.
And that will manifest as well as an entity and sometimes will manifest as an entity.
So now what do you do to counsel those individuals that are maybe living or actually bringing about that particular phenomenon?
Well, this is where we go into some I usually refer them to a good parapsychologist, which will do some regression work with them, because what you'll usually find in these cases, especially the ones that are self-manifesting, what you'll usually find in some of these cases is that there is an underlying root, an underlying cause. Might even be a psychological cause.
And I'm sure that a lot of listeners are not even thinking of it on that.
Well,
when we hear of ghost stories and things of that nature, we're really not looking at the foundation of the cause of it. We're just we're just thinking from, let's say, old movies that we watch that, hey, this comes out of nowhere.
Exactly. We're going to relate to what we know or what we've seen, and this is normal for us. Our normal psychological minds work on sensory capacity. Basically, the sensory input that we receive automatically in our consciousness basically perceives and rationalizes, and thereby turns around and fires the neurons that said, this is something I need to be afraid of, or this may be a ghost, or this may be an evil entity, or whatever. And it's going to try to rationalize with some past experience that we've had. In other words, that's basically what gives our flight or fight syndrome there.
Right.
But on the other hand, there are many cases where we get into what we call the dual consciousness theory of psychology, which basically says we can receive input from other sources other than our senses. In other words, psychokinetic energy.
Right.
These are really true paranormal experiences. And
well, it makes a lot of sense. Now, let me ask you, I know you have a lot of cases. In fact, you've had well over 500 cases on your list there. What has been one of the most, let's say, the most impressive case that you've done, or one that you just cannot simply forget about? And also, do you write about that particular case in your book, Fear Not the Night?
No, I didn't, because that case didn't occur until after I had already written the book.
Ooh, well, tell us about it.
This was a case in Vero Beach, Florida, that I did in 2005. It was a very, very unique case in that it contained both paranormal experiences and this negative energy manifestation. In other words, it was a sort of a combined case, in which both were a factor.
So what happened?
What happened was there was a family, a lady, I think, and her 3 kids, if I recall correctly. She also had a live-in boyfriend. I was contacted by her aunt, who I had done some work for before, and she practically begged me to go down and do an investigation because of this. They were experiencing an entity in the house, an actual entity, and the woman herself was perceiving a spirit of a small girl. Well, I did the in-depth interviews, of course, over the phone and through emails, and also tried to interview as many of the people as I could. That investigation took quite a while because I wanted to do personal interviews face-to-face with them, as well as the email and phone interviews. I wanted to interview everybody that was concerned. And as the case unfolded, there was both manifestation of paranormal evidence there and also of spiritual evidence and of negative energy.
So take us through that experience. I mean, exactly what type of paranormal activity was there, and what type of spiritual activity was there? I mean, were we looking at a poltergeist, or?
Yeah, we were looking at some poltergeist-like activity, which turned out to be mostly manifestation of negative energy. That can manifest as poltergeist energy too, because it's all psychokinetically charged. It's all psychokinetically connected.
So was it throwing things or opening doors?
Well, what it was actually doing, it was manifesting as a black cloud type thing. A
black cloud?
A black mist type thing. The children had seen it. The one child of the live-in boyfriend had seen it, and he wouldn't go back to the house. Didn't get to interview him, but I did get to interview his father. Did get to interview the woman herself face-to-face and the other two children. The woman was also experiencing a voice of a little girl and had actual sighting of the little girl.
So do you think that a poltergeist and spiritual activities, such as with the little girl, do you think that they are on separate dimensions, or do you think that they're all in the same time and space beside one another?
No, they're apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges, okay.
Apples and oranges. The poltergeist activity was actually being manifested by the young live-in boyfriend.
Right.
At the particular time, there was some connections with him with an occult group that was not a good occult group.
Right, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not going to put down anybody's beliefs or anything like that.
We understand.
But the group that he had been associated with in the past was not of a helpful nature, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do know what you mean. Ooh,
yes.
Very dark, very dark.
Very dark.
Well, now, you had said that the poltergeist had appeared as more of a black mist, and, that reminds me of a conversation that Tuesday Miles and I had not long ago, and she was describing a gas haze of a spirit that was manifesting. It kind of looks like heat is rising off of hot pavement.
Yeah, I've witnessed it. As a matter of fact, I've photographed a few of those. I've got several photographs.
So do you find that pretty typical that, sometimes we might be looking at something that looks like heat rising off of hot pavement, but actually it truly is a phenomenon happening or even a portal?
Well, it's a possibility, but most of the ones that I have photographed can't be seen with the naked eye. The ones that I have photographed, I saw neither one of them with the naked eye.
So do you think that the equipment's picking up and it's more sensitive than our own senses?
Well, it's not more sensitive. It just doesn't have a brain that rationalizes, hey, there is no such thing,
Very good point. Well, let's talk about your book for a minute, Fear Not the Night. I understand that you have quite a few true experiences and accounts in that book. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I can. The book is based on an experience I had while living in Perry, Florida, before I retired. I was working for the State Department of Corrections over there at the time. The book actually started out, the story was, and there's a lady in the room, if I'm looking correctly, I don't think she's there anymore, that actually was a good part in helping me determine exactly who and what it was. There was a lady with the nickname in the room of Petite Princess who was mentioned in the book. I think she's still down there, who actually had some psychic input to that particular story that helped me identify the little boy's spirit in the book.
Wow.
And helped me identify who he actually was. The story itself started with my wife and I were baking some cookies, some Christmas cookies. It was around Christmas time, and we were baking some cookies, and I happened to look out the kitchen door window. We had a window in the kitchen door, and I saw a little boy run up on the carport and in my utility room. And it kind of did a double take there because the little boy was wearing a short-sleeved shirt in the dead of winter there,
So you thought it was a real boy, maybe in the neighborhood.
Exactly, I did. And I went on to tell the story of it in the book. And, of course, I fictionalized the characters themselves because there are a lot of people around there that might not have appreciated me using their names and things. So I basically changed the characters' names, but the events were real. And it was interconnected. I started doing some research to find out maybe who this child was. And you would not believe the help and intuitive insights that a lot of people gave me on this child.
Well, now I understand that your wife, Chris, is also an empathic psychic. And
yes,
did she enhance that investigation for you?
She certainly did. She played a big part in it because the spirit of the little boy and his sister eventually came to her. They eventually came to her and became quite comfortable there. It turned out, and without giving away the story of the book or the plot of the book, it turned out that basically I had seen these two children die over 30 years ago.
Oh, no.
And they sought me out.
Oh, my goodness. That's absolutely fascinating. So you witnessed, you saw their own demise?
No, I inadvertently witnessed their death in a plane crash.
Oh.
And of course, I explain all that in detail in the book, how it came about.
Well, Fear Not the Night. It definitely is going to be a good seller out there. Now, James, I understand that you're writing another book.
Yes, I am. I'm currently in work on a book called The Switchman. It's a totally fictional book, but it is loosely based on an investigation I did in Madison, Florida, of an old train depot there.
So now, when should we expect that book to be out and available for us to read?
Well, I'm hoping before the end of the year. I'm hoping before the end of the year. I may or may not use the same publisher that I used before because I'm not real happy with that publisher, but I may try to go through an agent this time, and perhaps it'll be a little wider span that the book will be sold on.
Well, for those of you that are interested in Fear Not the Night, you can go to portaltalkradio.com and click on our guest page, where you'll be able to find all of the links to Fear Not the Night and a brief bio on James. Now, James, I have to tell you, you have been an angel to me. And you came to me in a time when things were rather chaotic in my own home life. And my mother had suffered 2 strokes, and I was the caretaker of my mother. And that's when I noticed a lot of activity picking up. I'd seen orbs here and there, and I'd seen a few things, things disappear and reappear. And I like to say a little help from my spiritual friends turning on the lights. But I had an incident with a coconut. Now, for those of you out there, I, too, am a sane individual, but I have to tell you, James, you spoke about something, and I'm going to share this brief story with our listeners because I find it important what you said to me and advised me to do. And, the coconut story is about a time when I was actually watching a little granddaughter of mine. And she had a habit of, sneaking down the hallway and into the kitchen and getting her a little bite to eat and sneaking back before she really settled down for bed. So one evening I'm sitting there, and I hear rattling of utensils, rattling, rattle, rattle, and I thought, I took for granted it was my granddaughter. Well, all of a sudden, this big boom happened, and I hear glass shattering. So I'm thinking it's an intruder, right? Mm-hmm. I rush to the kitchen thinking I have an intruder. Everything is fine. The glass is all intact. Everything looks normal. I, go check on my granddaughter to make sure that she, didn't do anything. She was sound asleep. So I came back into the kitchen. It's very normal. And I said, no, nothing's here. So I kind of, that feeling that you get when you're being told, no, it's not over.
Right.
So I go into the laundry room, and there on the floor is what I would call 1/4 of a top of a raw coconut. Now, imagine my surprise that I have a raw coconut on my floor. So I pick it up. The flesh looks, just like any other coconut. It's all white and lovely, And so I entered back into the kitchen to find coconut milk all over the glass, which wasn't there when I first looked at it. Coconut milk all over the floors. You can imagine coconut. I saw a large gash in the wall. And then the other 3/4 of the coconut was literally on top of the utensils. And I kept utensils in a little crock on my counter. So it would have had to have gone at least 15 to 18 inches up in the air and over. The one strange thing about the coconut is it looked like someone took a machete to it. It was a clean cut. So now, logically I tried to say, do coconuts explode? Maybe I've never heard of coconuts exploding before. But this one could not have this could not have exploded. It just, like I said, it looked like a machete. So, I had a lot of activity after that, whole coconut incident, but that, really caught me off guard. So in walks James Hatcher. I came across you, and I was talking to you about this entire story, and you said, well, Angela, you were not, that spirit did not try to get your attention, because I had told it that night, if you're trying to get my attention, you better find another way to do it. So you said, it's not trying to get your attention, it was trying to get the attention of other spirits in your home, and it used sound memory, thus the glass shattering. So now, can you explain to us what exactly is sound memory, and how do you think spirits utilize that?
Okay, sound memory. There are certain spirits that are earthbound spirits. The ones that we run into most often are usually earthbound spirits that have not passed on into the light. They have not left this plane of existence, basically. If you can imagine as a spirit not being able to get the attention of a human or another spirit, a live human or another spirit, but yet you see them. It's like being on one side of a on the side of a one-way mirror.
Right.
Okay. And you can't hear what's going on outside, but you can see some things. All right. What it's going to do is it's going to try to break that barrier, and it's going to use what we call sound memory to do that. Okay, sound memory is not associated. Don't associate it now with EVPs. Okay.
Okay, so it is totally different.
It is totally different. You can have sound memory in EVPs, but it is not, a spiritual voice, so to speak. What it is a sound that has been basically recorded in someone's memory, and even as a spirit, you have a certain access to that memory.
Ah, yeah.
And basically, they can, being as they are purely energy beings. They don't have the tissue. They don't have the electrochemical reaction to the brain that we do, because they are basically self-contained energy.
So their energy actually is working with our own energy.
Exactly. They can interact and use your sensory capacities, in other words, to create that sound where you would hear it as well.
Goodness gracious. Okay, so do you feel that is only with earthbound, or do you think that all spirits or different types of spirits can utilize the same thing by tapping into our own senses and tapping into our own memory.
Well, I'm certain that they can, because it's all psychokinetic energy driven. And I'm certain that they can as well.
So now, where do you think that they are getting that energy to even, utilize our senses or our memory? I mean, I know that from past conversations with you, you were talking about, they do need heat sources and things like that.
Exactly. Well, the psychokinetic energy, okay, and first of all, any physicist will tell you that energy cannot be destroyed, okay? It simply goes on and changes form.
I believe that.
I do too. We're constantly producing energy. The Earth is constantly producing energy. The universe is constantly producing energy, and we also have what Carl Jung, the protege of Freud, termed the collective consciousness. Are you familiar with that?
Very little. I've studied psychology, but,
The collective consciousness and collective unconsciousness basically is memories of everything that has occurred. And we can tap into that memory psychokinetically if our awareness is raised enough, and if we are basically psychically aware enough.
So that would then explain why even a psychic themselves could go retrocognitively, go back in time and capture, let's say, a particular event?
Absolutely.
Very good, very good. Well, that's an absolutely fascinating thing on sound memory. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because when you first told me, that spirit was trying to get the attention of other spirits, do you feel that one spirit attracts other spirits?
At times, I'm sure they do. A lot would depend on the people that are aware of them, too, whether one would attract another. I'm a firm believer that there are several quote-unquote attractions for spirits, okay? One being our emotions. Our emotions are basically the driver of the car, you might say.
Right.
Our emotions and our spiritual and conscious connection to them. They oftentimes translate into basically a psychokinetic energy that would draw or attract a certain type of spirit.
So one spirit or one happening leads to the other, is that right?
Exactly.
So now, would that be the same, like, have you ever experienced seeing a portal?
I believe I photographed one at one time. I'm not sure that it was, because I did have in the photograph it was a sort of U-shaped funnel type thing.
Right.
And there were orbs all in it.
Ooh.
And coming out of it.
Well, absolutely amazing. So tell me a little bit about your wife's participation with you. Does she basically share the same ideas and same experiences that you have had, or do you all do this separately or with other groups?
Well, what we do is when my wife accompanies me on an investigation, I depend on her a lot because she is much more emotionally and psychically aware than I am, to tell you the truth. I can feel a spirit and I can interact with a spirit if that spirit wants to interact with me. However, she grabs hold of their emotions. Somehow they come to her emotionally. And she can basically tell whether they're happy, whether they're sad, whether they're, hurting, whether they're have a problem or whatever. And she does that a lot better than I do because she's far more psychically aware than I am as far as that.
Well, why do you think that, today's investigators are leaning more towards relying on their instruments versus relying on perhaps a psychic to assist them?
Well, actually, the trend is reversing a little bit in that respect, because the investigators are relying more these days on psychic input as well. What it does is provides validation. Okay, the difference is any equipment that we have as far as paranormal investigation equipment is simply that. It's equipment that detects changes in the environment. It does not say, hey, there's a ghost here, or hey, there's a spirit here. Because some of those same changes can occur when there's not a spirit there. They can occur just from the energy of a place.
Well, you know, James, it's been an absolutely fascinating interview. You'll certainly have to join us again. We are nearing the end of our show. I do want to remind listeners that James Hatcher has written Fear Not the Night, absolutely fascinating story. And James, can you share with us where we may obtain this Fear Not the Night book?
Yes, absolutely. BarnesandNobles.com shares it, has it online, as well as Amazon.com. Also, that can be obtained directly from the publisher, which is www.publishamerica.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we all look forward to reading your book, and we'll be looking for your secondary book to be coming out. Just a reminder to the listeners that next Sunday we will have a rebroadcast, and then join us again on July 15th, where Melinda Rodriguez, Reiki Master and Spirit Drum Master, will be joining us to explain how energy healing works. Also, if you care to visit our website, it is www.portaltalkradio.com. If you would like to refer to the paranormalradionetwork.com site, you can listen to the archives and listen to the other shows that are available on Paranormal Radio Network. Thank you all very much. I've enjoyed this interview with you, James.
And I've enjoyed it immensely too, Angela. I'm really glad to hear from you again.
Well, thank you all, listeners. God bless you all, and good night.
Good night.